Okay, so from now on it's being recorded. So welcome everybody. Today we have another amazing gathering on Zoom with our detox expert Ivanna. And it's been organized by the weekly fasting group. It's an international fasting group, WhatsApp group, and we cultivate the habit of fasting for 24 hours a week. So in case you watch this video and this idea appeals to you, you are welcome to join the group and send me a WhatsApp message by the number that appears below the video. So, and now, Ivana, over to you.
Hi guys, so thank you for having me back, and thank you for being patient with me, because last time I was a little bit out of sorts. I have been unpacking my fast for the last 2 weeks, and it's been a real roller coaster. So, this 12-day fast that I did had sort of very significant physical and emotional repercussions for me. A week after breaking it, I ended up having to go on another 3-day dry fast just to snap me out of the first one. So let me just fill you in a little bit on what's been happening. After I broke my 12-day fast, I started having symptoms of gout, which is a type of rheumatoid arthritis that is caused by uric acid deposits in the joints. It is extremely painful, and I can tell you that I have never experienced pain like that in my life. It's like something has your hands and feet in a vice and just keeps tightening the grip and the crushing pressure. And just when you think that you have maxed out on the pain level, that it just cannot go any higher, that grip of that vice just squeezes and crushes your bones even tighter. So this went on for a week before I said, enough of this, I just can't take this any longer. My hands and feet were most seriously affected by this, because I also had some pain in my forearms and some subtle joint pain in other places, but my hands and especially my feet were the worst. So at this time I had limited use of my hands, which is scary because we take it for granted. I mean, I couldn't even squeeze the soap dispenser to wash my hands. That's how bad it got. And my feet were just in excruciating, constant burning pain. I couldn't sleep because of the pain. It got to the point that I cried. I would sit and I cried. Ice wasn't enough. And I actually considered at one point taking painkillers because the situation was getting really unbearable. But instead of going that way, I decided to go back on the dry fast because somehow I intuitively felt that this would solve the problem. And I am very happy to tell you that it did. I don't know if you remember that when we met last week, there was a person who asked the question, I think his name was Rob, and he was talking about coming out of an 11-day dry fast, because 11 days is basically the recommended full course of medical dry fasting if you're using Filonov's model, right? So he was talking about, let's say you do an 11-day dry fast and something gets stirred up that the body didn't finish clearing up. So what happens if we go right back, maybe as soon as 4 weeks later, and do another course of 11 days of dry fasting? Would that completely solve the problem? And it's funny in how life synchronistically orchestrates learning opportunities for us to teach us lessons, because to some extent, this is what ended up happening with me going back on a dry fast. Now, last week, my answer to Rob was that I couldn't see myself going for another 11, 12 days with only taking 4 weeks in between. But now that I had done the 3 days and how easy it was for me to do, you know, and the way I was feeling, I could tell you that I could have easily gone for 5 and not even feel it, you know. So can it be done? Yes, I think it can. My resistance was mostly psychological, because I kept thinking that since I had already abstained from food and water for so long, I didn't want to continue depriving my body, right? I felt like I needed to rehydrate, I needed to refeed, I needed to get back to normalcy. So it was more of a, you know, self-imposed mental block based on the belief that you should only do this for this long for it to be beneficial. But in terms of whether or not it's possible, could I do it? Most likely. But I think that it's not enough for us to answer the question of whether it's possible to do 2 rounds of 11-day dry fasts within a 4-week stretch. I think that a more pertinent question is to find out if this is actually beneficial, if there's an added benefit to the body, or if this can actually become detrimental if you push the body past a certain point. You know, it's one thing to be able to get through it, but are we helping, or are we going too far and now hurting ourselves? And unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that. And the only way to find out is to do it, and maybe one day I will. Today was not the day. And as far as being able to finish the job, so to speak, I think that the answer is a little more nuanced than a simple yes or no. And of course, keep in mind that I only did 3 days, which is a rather short period. So it's not quite the same as the full standard course of medical dry fasting that's 11 days long. So I don't think we can make equal comparisons here. Now, did it solve my immediate problem? Did it resolve my symptoms? Yes, it did. Does it mean that I got to the bottom of the problem and got rid of it completely? No, I don't believe that that happened, not by a long shot. Just based on the last 3 dry fasts that I did, each lasting 9, 11, and 12 days respectively, I feel that this particular issue is something that is going to take some time, because I have been experiencing these symptoms now. This is the 3rd time that I have had this happen. So this is an ongoing thing. But what I want to do is go a little deeper into the phenomenon of the healing crises in general. The symptoms that we experience during these periods, and the mechanism of healing that's at work. And I think that this particular episode that I experienced after the dry fast can sort of give us some good context to put it into perspective. So, as I said, I was having intense, nonstop gout attacks after breaking my 12-day fast. And these symptoms are not something that I normally encounter in my life. In other words, I don't have this problem outside of breaking a long dry fast. Now, why is that? The only times you're going to be feeling symptoms of an ailment or of a problem is when this particular problem is in its acute stage. That is either when the problem is first created, right? this is when you ingest something, you create an irritation, and the body goes into defense mode, and you feel the repercussions of that. So you either feel it in the acute stage, or when it gets to the degenerative stage, which means tissue damage. This is when the acids are breaking down your cellular structure, they're disrupting cellular function and creating all kinds of mutations. I'm sure you know by now, if you've been following these webinars, that there are 4 stages of lymphatic stagnation. You have the acute, subacute, chronic, and degenerative. Now, chronic, as well as the later stages of subacute conditions, are actually symptom-free. This is important. Chronic stages, I'm going to repeat, are symptom-free. This is when you stop feeling your problem as it gets suppressed and buried. And this is where a lot of people mistakenly believe that they have surmounted their ailment, that they have gotten better, or that their immune system got stronger. You know, people tell me all the time, oh, you know, I used to get colds and flus or urinary tract infections when I was younger all the time, but then I got over it. And now I've been really healthy for the last 15 years. Well, the reason that you haven't had symptoms is that your body stopped fighting and quit trying to clean things up as a result of having taken antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, and painkillers. It's not because you got stronger. And by the way, this includes natural and herbal remedies used as suppressants. You know, if you've got a cold or a low-grade infection and you take oil of oregano or olive leaf extract to treat or minimize the symptoms, you are still interrupting the natural cleansing process and not allowing the body to clear the obstructions that are causing your symptoms to begin with. You know, you might as well be taking antibiotics. The only difference is that, unlike chemical meds, herbs are not toxic to the body. So think about what happens when we get a cold. You know, we are stuffed up, can't breathe, we're coughing, we have a headache, mucus running, high fever, you know, a whole host of things are happening. In other words, we feel crappy and we want it to stop. But what we have to ask ourselves is, why do we have these symptoms to begin with? Well, because we have accumulated mucus and acidic waste in our tissues that are destructive to the body. And so what the body will do is try and get rid of it. Now, mucus in itself isn't a bad thing. Creation of mucus is an immune response by the body. It's a defense mechanism against toxic irritants. When you are introducing a substance into your system that is harmful to it, that is acidic or corrosive, your lymphatic system starts to secrete mucus in order to create a layer of separation or a sort of protective coating to insulate itself from this offending substance. However, when the body continues to be under a constant assault from harmful irritants, it has to keep producing more and more mucus. And when this mucus doesn't get removed because we're stopping the expectoration process, it starts to keep accumulating in the tissues, layer upon layer, creating obstructions until it eventually strangles us. So even though mucus is not an actual toxin, but rather a substance produced by the body to neutralize toxins that have entered the system, If it sits around long enough, eventually it starts to turn necrotic. So when it comes to detox, our goal is not only to detox the actual toxic matter, but the mucus that it created as well. Another thing to keep in mind is that an acidic environment is very drying because acids are dehydrating by their very nature, and they create something that's called anionic bonds. This means that toxic matter and mucus become hardened and agglomerated. Everything becomes lumped and stuck together. And this is what causes the stagnation within our lymphatic system. Now, detoxification cannot happen unless this stagnant lymph becomes rehydrated and mobilized. Once we start getting movement in our lymphatic system, the body then starts to push all of that garbage toward the exits, which in this case are our eliminative organs, right? So we call these symptoms that occur as a result of lymph mobilization a cold. So when you feel stuffy, it's because that compact, hardened mucus has now been hydrated, making it expand and swell up in your sinuses, right? We're coughing because the body is spasming the lungs to break up and shake loose clusters of mucus that's lodged in there in order to get it out along with any other toxic material we may have inhaled. We get a fever because raising our core temperature makes us sweat so that we can remove toxins through our skin. Also, high temperature kills harmful pathogens, so we kill off bacteria and viruses. Now, all of these things are actually positive and progressive in of itself. And they're, of course, geared to purge the body and clean the system. Yet, for some reason, we are taught that when we get a cold, there's something wrong, something went awry, there's been a breakdown in the system, right? The only thing wrong is that the body is toxic. However, it is taking steps to correct the situation. But because this corrective situation, or this mechanism rather, feels unpleasant, we're conditioned to make it want to stop. When the right thing to do is to just let it run its course. Think about it this way. When you touch a very hot surface, you feel pain, right? What it's signaling is that damage is being done to your hand. And it's instructing you to move your hand away from the flame. It's logical, right? But for some reason, when we are burning our body internally with toxic substances and we feel pain as a result of this action, instead of stopping the harmful behavior, what we do is we suppress the pain signaling and then pretend that the destructive damage stopped happening because we can't feel it. It's the equivalent of keeping your hand on the stove while injecting a local anesthetic in it to numb the pain. Before you know it, your hand is going to be barbecued with meat falling off the bone if you don't stop doing what you're doing. And none of us would ever do this to our hands on a hot stove because that would be insane. Yet for some reason, we have no problem blocking all kinds of pain signals that are sounding the alarm that we need to course correct. And so we just continue on with frying our body from inside out. Now, most people will take chemical medications or natural remedies, both of which only serve to stop the healing process and ensure that the problem itself remains. In other words, we're still burning ourselves up. We're just not feeling the sensation of it because we have chemically altered our ability to sense it. So when we treat symptoms, we're not fixing the problem. We're only disrupting the signaling mechanism that normally lets us know that the problem exists. So now that we don't feel it, we have mistakenly decided that it's no longer there. And of course, as I said, it's not the case. Those acids and mucus remain, and they continue to break down our tissues as we keep on piling up more and more destructive waste on top of the existing problem. I too used to take oil of oregano to stop my colds, and it always worked. You know, I would take it as soon as I would start to feel a little tickle in my throat. I would take it to prevent any further progression of the symptoms. And I remember feeling always happy and accomplished and successful each time I prevented another cold. Well, you suppress enough colds, and before you know it, your hair and teeth are falling out because you keep filling your head up with corrosive acids that have no way out. So they just keep sitting there chewing on our cells. So this stage, when we become disconnected from the awareness of the problem, is known as the chronic stage of lymphatic stagnation. With continued suppression, this chronic stage inevitably moves into the degeneration of tissues. And this is where we start to see cancer, Alzheimer's, RA, tooth decay, and all the other so-called diseases. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is to drive the point that not having symptoms does not mean that you don't have a problem. It just means that you have pushed it down deep enough to where you no longer feel it. So detoxing is a lot like rewinding the tape. You're going to walk your condition back from the chronic state to the acute state when the symptoms become activated again. And that's when we start to feel the impact of that acidic condition in its full glory. And this principle applies to all health issues across the board. You know, detox symptoms are not limited to the cold and flu type symptoms. You know, it all depends on the specific conditions that you may have. For instance, having infections like UTIs is the body's way of cleansing the urinary tract from acidic waste. You stop the infection, you stop the cleansing process. So there are all kinds of symptoms that can occur as a result of healing. And it's important to understand that how we respond to these reactions is going to determine the state of our health going forward. And so over the last 3 dry fasts, this is something that's been happening with me. It turns out I have had uric acid deposits, which I believe were inherited because both of my grandparents on the maternal side had bad leg problems. You know, we're talking eczema, gangrene. My grandmother couldn't walk for the last 20 years of her life. And, you know, I myself have always had very poor circulation in my legs, along with serious swelling. And most of my life, I didn't actually have any recollections of arthritic episodes, except for this particular long dry fast that I did, where afterwards I started having flashbacks to when I was 8 years old and I was at a cousin's wedding. And I remember my feet really, really hurting. And I remember taking off my shoes, which caused my feet to swell up to the point that I couldn't put my shoes back on. And now I start to remember that it was a very similar type of pain to what I have been experiencing recently. So sometimes we're just too young when we first experience the acute stages of our condition and simply don't remember. And then, the issue goes chronic, we don't feel it. And when it resurfaces later in life, we're sort of caught by surprise and we go, wait, where's this coming from? I have never had arthritis. This is weird. So let's look at what happened in this particular case. As I said, I believe that for me, this is an inherited chronic problem. And when I changed my lifestyle a few years ago by going on a raw diet and practicing fasting, I started to clean my body. So I guess I got to the point where I have cleaned up quite a bit of the more recent stuff that's been created through my past lifestyle choices. And now I'm starting to get more into the deeper genetic stuff. What you have to understand is that in many cases, aside from the issues that we have accumulated in our current lifetime through exposure to chemicals, poor diet, injuries, and so on, we also carry acidosis that was already at the chronic stage from birth. You see, we get our lymph, our sewer system, from our mother. So if mom is in the chronic stages of lymphatic stagnation when she's pregnant with us, so are we when we come out of her, because we are hooked up to her lymphatic system in the womb. You know, the mother eats and eliminates for the baby. So if she's got chronic lymph that doesn't move, that does not get eliminated, so do we. So many of us are born with built-in chronic conditions that we are completely unaware of, because, as I said, by definition, chronic conditions are symptom-free. The problem is that we misguidedly equate a lack of symptoms with being healthy. But ironically, not getting sick is actually unhealthy, because what we think of as being sick is in reality the body's way of maintaining a proper balance. So you may be walking around and feeling no pain for 40, 50 years of your life, thinking you're fine, when in fact you have a ticking bomb inside. Another thing is that when we have these inherent chronic conditions, the greater the additional acidic hit these compromised areas take as a result of our lifestyle, that is the food that we eat, our diet, the faster they're going to turn degenerative, making that ticking time bomb go off. And this is why we see so many childhood cancers. Kids these days inherit stages of acidosis that are so advanced that all it takes is really a few years on a set diet before they get leukemia or lymphoma or brain tumors, right? And by the way, lymphoma and leukemia are the cancers of the lymphatic system. So my point is that whatever issues you experience as a result of fasting, know that these problems are not created during the fast or by the fast or by your detox. These problems don't come out of nowhere. If you have symptoms that are coming up during or after a fast, even if you have never experienced those particular symptoms or issues in the past, it's because you have had a problem all along in your body that may have been latent, and you may not have even known about it because it's something that you inherited in its chronic stage, which means that it was suppressed. Okay, and remember, chronic conditions are symptom-free, and we don't become aware of these conditions either until they turn degenerative, meaning they destroy our organs, or until they start coming up as a result of detox. So when we are cleaning the body and it finally has the opportunity to get healthy, it's going to get at everything that is out of balance. And so I want you guys to know that fasting does not create problems. Fasting exposes them. You know, I have heard people in this group make assertions that dry fasting caused them to get kidney stones. No, it didn't. Fasting does not create kidney stones. But if you have had a kidney stone and you go on a fast, and all of a sudden you start having pain in your kidneys and you start passing stones, I can guarantee you that those stones have been there for a very long time. It's like when you get a shard of glass stuck in the palm of your hand. You know, if you leave it alone, if you don't touch it for a time, you might not even know that it's there. But now if you try to get it out and you're wiggling it and moving it around, all of a sudden you go, ouch, you know, it hurts because, you know, the sharp edges are poking and injuring the surrounding tissues. And it's the same with the kidney stones. As you're loosening things up, as you start to dislodge and move that stone out of the space where it's been stationary for a while, you're going to feel its sharp edges as it moves through the kidney tissue. You know, I too, through fasting, discovered that unbeknownst to me, I had kidney stones. And it took 3 consecutive fasts that were over 9 days long to fully clear up this issue for me. So during my last fast, again, a bunch of uric acid got dissolved in my feet and my hands, but the cleansing process was interrupted when I broke the fast. So now there's all this remaining residue that's been freed up that still has to be eliminated. Now, the beauty of dry fasting and why I love it so much is that it is self-contained. It's very efficient. Everything happens in an almost closed system, leaving very little byproduct or residue, right? So when we're dry fasting, we are having healing crises. We're having symptoms come up, but they're muted. You know, it's almost like the volume is turned down and we move through them much quicker. But when you switch to water fasting, which is what essentially happened when I started drinking again, the body switched to a different mode of elimination that's much slower and much more complex and involved. This means that now the water first needs to be brought to the affected areas to sort of dilute those acids and place them in solution. And then the lymphatic system has to pump that diluted acid toward the kidneys to be eliminated. Now, we have a problem, or I had a problem that was twofold. One is that feet are really far away from the kidneys, really the farthest point from the kidneys, which means that you have to move the waste through a greater distance to eliminate it. So it's going to take longer. And two, you know, when you have compromised circulation, as I do, it makes it even harder for the body to move lymph and pump those acids toward the kidneys. And there's another aspect to this, aside from the first 2 points that I mentioned. You have to consider obstructions that you may have in other areas, like lymph nodes. I have a lot of swollen lymph nodes in many areas of my body. And this is something that is very easy to see using iridology, especially if you have blue eyes. You can see where you have swollen lymph nodes, right? So sometimes the issue is not the kidneys themselves. Your kidneys could be working and filtering well. But when you have a lymph node that is congested, hardened, acidic, you can't move things through it, right? So you're going to find yourself in a situation where if you have waste that has to move through a lymph node before it gets to a kidney, and that lymph node is congested, it's like having a snow avalanche blocking the highway, how are you going to get that waste out to your kidneys? So kidneys are fine, they're working. But if you cannot get the waste to the kidneys, then now the waste sits around and it has to be moved through the skin, and it just takes so much longer. So you find yourself in a situation where certain parts of your body cannot drain. You know, I have shared this before. I have a really enlarged, congested lymph node under my right jaw. So everything from the neck down drains very well because my kidney is working. But from the top of my head to the bottom of my jaw, I got a problem where acids stagnate and have no way of getting out. And this is why, you know, I have had significant or more significant hair loss when I experienced it on my right side. And this is why, you know, when I get nasal congestion, it's always worse on the right side. I can't breathe as well on that side of my body. So as you see, there are other factors involved that can prevent you from moving the waste out effectively from your body. And this is what happened to me. Things just sort of started to stagnate and not move, or at least not move quickly enough. And this is what was causing me so much pain. So going on another dry fast helped to remove that inflammation right away. Well, not right away, it took about 12 hours, but you know, inflammation cannot exist without presence of water. So you go dry, all of a sudden everything comes down. And when you go on a dry fast, whatever is close on the surface, the body cleans up right away, and does it fairly quickly, right? So going on this dry fast following the first 12-day fast helped me sort of clean up and mop up whatever leftover residue remained that was causing me all of these issues. And I started to feel pain subsiding almost as soon as I went into ketosis. When you go into that keto flu, when you get the headache and stuff like that, it started to let go. It didn't go away completely. It just started to come and go. It would, you know, intensify and then stop until by day 2 was gone completely. And then I just gave it just an extra 24 hours just to be sure before I broke the fast. And I was a little nervous to break the fast because I was worried that the symptoms would come back, but that didn't happen. So if you are dealing with something like this, try going on another dry fast if this happens to you, because this did resolve my symptoms. It doesn't mean that it cleaned up the problem, because the problem is more extensive and it's something that's going to take several more fasts to get at, you know, the same way it took 3 separate fasts for me to clean up my kidneys and get all the kidney stones out. So from what I see in my experience, one fast, even if it's really long, is never going to be a cure-all, okay? And with each fast, you're going to see, if you're doing it correctly, you're going to see detox reactions. I think it's important that people understand and accept that invariably, detox results in a degree of pain and discomfort. So if you are on a detox protocol, be it a raw fruitarian diet, herbs, you're juicing, or you're doing any type of fasting, and you're feeling no pain, I'm sorry to tell you, you're not detoxing. It means that you are staying stagnant, that you're simply maintaining status quo, because you're not walking or reversing your chronic conditions back to their acute state. And it's not possible for us to mobilize acids and not feel at least some discomfort as a result of that mobilization, because by their very nature, acids burn. This means that moving acids out of your body is going to hurt to some extent. You cannot get healthy without experiencing pain and discomfort. And this is one of the reasons so many people stay stuck and don't progress on their health journey, because they're afraid of pain. And every time the body gets close to cleaning up a condition or an ailment, they stop the process because it feels uncomfortable. But if you're going to keep doing this, you're not going to get anywhere. So yes, it's uncomfortable, but it is the only way, unfortunately. So this is as far as the physical repercussions that I experienced with this fast. I also had a lot of emotional baggage come up. And it was disconcerting, and it was a little bit difficult because it felt like I was being stripped of my identity. You know, it's like going from knowing who you are, what you do, what you represent, what you're supposed to do, to being completely unsure of anything. To being like, I used to think that I knew this, and that, and now I go, do I really know anything? Can I really help anybody? And it's a very sort of disconcerting psychological place to be in, because you feel like you don't belong. You feel ungrounded, unanchored. You feel like you don't know who you are. But what is happening is that you're being stripped away of all of these false programs that, may have been imposed upon you by your family, your society, and you're starting to really look at the core. So it's not that things are being stripped away and taken away from you. It's that you're being forced to look at what you are and what you are not, and to separate those things, to really make a decision, to see that, oh, I thought that this was me, but it's really not. It's just something that I accepted because my mom always said I should be this or I should do that, right? And then you get the choice and the freedom to decide, all right, so I don't have to keep this. I can let this go. So it was an intense period where I just felt like a fish out of water, like I belonged nowhere, like I had no sense of purpose, nothing. And I felt like, what am I going to do tomorrow? I was like, I don't know how to deal with this. But the thing is that if you stay in it long enough and it works its way out, it just goes away, and all of a sudden you get perfect clarity and you start to feel really good. So the idea is to not to try to push these uncomfortable states away, or to feel like there's something wrong. I shouldn't be feeling this way. If it's coming up, there's a reason it's coming up. It's coming up so we can deal with it, so we can sort things out. And once I did, I started to feel really good. But it took a long time. I mean, I didn't start to feel normal until yesterday morning. So it took 2 weeks. And that included an additional dry fast for me to sort of integrate all of the work that was done during the fast. So looking back, what that tells me is that actually quite a bit was done, both physically and emotionally, or it wouldn't have taken that long for me to sort things out afterwards. So that has been my experience that I wanted to share with you, and I hope that you find it in some way helpful or at least interesting. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them for you.
Can I ask some questions? Like I posted, yeah, I posted the questions for you. And also, now that you mentioned, that was fascinating about emotional detoxification. That, yeah, it's a very beautiful idea that actually it is all connected, our physical toxins with our emotional toxins, everything we grow up on, and it's amazing, right? So
Because everything is energy, whether it's a toxic matter or it's a feeling, it's energy, right? So when you break it down far enough into small particles, it's all energy. And if you're clearing out energy, you're going to be clearing out physical and emotional. But I think it's important people understand that it feels worse before it feels better. And it has to. You cannot avoid it. And if you continue to avoid it, then you will never get better. That is the point, both emotionally and physically.
So you were talking about the fact that you're not feeling sick, and that is a bad thing, even though it's because I haven't been sick for many years, but it's not like I'm repressing anything. I don't have any symptoms at all. That means the body has given up. It's not a good sign. That
it depends. Well, here's the thing. When I say sick, it depends. You know, sometimes a sickness can last a few hours. You understand? If your body is really clean, then when something comes in that it needs to clean up real quickly, it does it very fast. Like sometimes if your body's clean enough, you take something, you take a teaspoonful of something that you shouldn't eat. You start to get mucus in your throat right away, but you cough it up, you spit it out, it's gone. You see? So the body is constantly cleaning. Now, if your problem is a little deeper, then the symptoms of cleansing are going to last a little longer. You understand? Because there's more stuff in there. So it all depends. When your body is really clean, if anything comes in that is offensive to the body, it's going to clean it up, remove it very quickly. You know, you may get diarrhea right away, right? Because the body's going to try to purge it. You're going to get mucus that you're going to cough up right away, right? So when we are getting sick, it's because stuff has been accumulating longer. But if you've had a history of, I was sick, like in childhood, I had horrible ear infections, colds, all of that, nonstop. You understand? So for the first, I don't know, 8 or 9 years of my life, I was sick nonstop, and then I stopped being sick. It's not because you got stronger, because those conditions when you were sick were in their acute stage. And I was being treated with all kinds of pills and medication for ear infections, antibiotics, painkillers, all of it, right? So it's not that you cured yourself and now you got stronger, you don't get sick anymore. No, now all of those symptoms have moved into their chronic state. They're still there. They're just not coming up. They're not being released. So now I wasn't sick for, I don't know, 20 some years, right? And then you start getting sick again because that chronic state can only last so long before it starts to break you down. And that's when you start to get sick again. So that's why people go, oh, I was so good, nothing was wrong with me, and all of a sudden I'm sick again. I got cancer. No, you were sick all along. You were just not feeling it. It just got to the point that now it's broken down structural tissues in your system. Now, if you are clean, you know, then there's no reason for you to detox, right? There's no reason to bring things up. But also, what happens, and this happens for people in the beginning stages when they change their lifestyle, they start to feel really good, right? And they can feel good for a long time. Why? Because they're no longer putting things in their body that inflames them. So inflammation comes down, but they're still not detoxing. You see? It's when the body starts to go a little deeper, symptoms starts to come up. So you may not have hit that critical point yet. Also, a lot of people stay on vegetables, and vegetables don't detox you. Sorry, people. They don't. It doesn't matter how long. People think if it's just going to take longer. No, it's not. It's not about time. It's about energy. It's about frequency. Your cell, human cell, has a certain type of frequency, electricity, voltage, right? That has to be matched by the food that comes in. And vegetable matter doesn't have high enough frequency, doesn't have enough electricity. Only fruit does. So if you are staying on vegetables, you're going to go nowhere. I'm sorry.
So what do you do about the craving for salty, spicy taste? I see that is the problem, not because I really need it, but I need the taste. It's about the taste, so I don't consume salt anymore, but I need the salty taste of tomatoes, of pepper,
So
lemon.
I think the issue is a two-pronged issue here. One, the adrenal function. Why do we crave salt? We crave that taste because our adrenal cortex isn't working properly and not regulating the sodium-potassium balance. You understand? So the idea is to get the adrenals sorted out, strengthen, and get them working properly so you stop craving it. So that's one side of the issue. The second side is the addiction part. Salt is actually very addicting. It stimulates the centers of the brain that govern compulsive action. So sometimes it just takes it just takes going without. It's like a form of rehab, detox. When you get off heroin, you stop taking it until you stop wanting it, and eventually you will stop wanting it. But if you continue to sort of appease this craving, then you keep it alive. You keep the addiction alive. You understand? You keep wanting more.
But if I don't take salt anymore, but spices and salt and salty vegetables, not salt in itself, but the taste.
That's okay. That's okay, but you have to be careful with keeping too heavy with vegetables if you're trying to detox or heal certain issues, because vegetables, even in juice form, will keep you, at a certain plateau. They will not progress your healing. So be aware of that. So I think it's okay to have it once in a while. You have a hankering, you're not taking salt, you're going to have your little juice, but have it in moderation.
Okay, and yeah, thank you. And I also asked about, I don't know about detoxing, but I stopped being anxious, and I'm not anxious anymore. I used to. I just 3 weeks into juice fasting, even on vegetables, and still. So has it got to do with the adrenals, the fact that all of a sudden I feel peaceful and calm? So and I think it's about it's about food, like feelings. It's not about I have some emotional problems, psychological problems. Just you change your diet and
well, of course, remember our gut is connected to our brain through the vagus nerve. Our gut is literally our second brain. So whatever fuel we ingest is going to determine our feelings, right? If you're burning clean fuel, light, energetic, high frequency, you're going to feel good, right? You're going to have good thoughts. Also, foods that are heavy, rice, potato, all of that starch feeds parasites, and parasites have a consciousness of their own, and they communicate with your brain through that vagus nerve. So when you are on nothing but juices, even if they're just vegetable juices, it's still fine. You understand? You're not feeding parasites. So you're more in touch with your own consciousness rather than being taken over by the consciousness of microscopic critters that live inside you. So of course it's natural when you are consuming a clean, high frequency diet that your thought process is different. It's cleaner, it's lighter. You feel less anxious.
And another thing I asked about collagen production with age. So is there a way to encourage and get to produce more?
Yes. Yes. Well, first you understand what makes us lose collagen. Acids, they dehydrate and they break down structure and they take calcium, and calcium is what gives us shape, right? That's what makes everything firm. That's calcium. So if you have calcium loss and you don't have the ability to replenish that calcium, to put it back into your system, you're going to age prematurely. So step one is to remove the acids that are robbing you of calcium, robbing your connective tissue of calcium, making it loose and wrinkly. And step two is you have to be able to utilize calcium, which means you have to have good thyroid and parathyroid, and then you have to be ingesting things that have the nutrients that can be synthesized into calcium, you know, like horsetail, things that have silica in them, alfalfa leaf juice, comfrey root, things like that. And also, salt is another culprit. When people eat salt, it ages them faster because it dehydrates the cell. So you start to look dehydrated, you look like a prune, you know, moisture's been sucked out of you, right? So it ages the cell faster. So the idea is to create the environment to stop the breakdown of cellular structure. If you keep the cell young, everything's going to look young because your skin is made out of cells. Another thing that is very important is fasting, because autophagy refurbishes our cells, right? It breaks down and eats up everything that's defective. And when we break the fast, the body is flooded with stem cells. Everything is then rebuilt anew. So consistent fasting will also keep you young. And more so dry fasting. But for dry fasting, and
Yeah, I understand.
all the time, you got to go at least 3 days to make sure you hit all of the stages necessary.
So it is inevitable. I thought maybe there's a way to bypass it, like just be raw. So it is inevitable, and you have to fast.
You don't have to fast. Listen, if you are a raw foodist, and especially if you're a high fruit raw foodist and your glands are healthy, you are going to look young. But it's also individual, you know. I mean, I don't know. I'm in my 40s now. I think I look okay. I fast a lot, you know. So, but we also do have different genetic makeup, but the higher the frequency, energetic frequency of the foods that you consume, the higher the frequency of your cells, because that's what your cells consume. So you vibrate higher, you look better, you look more radiant. I mean, you can't look 20 forever. That's just not reasonable. You know what I mean? But if you look at a lot of raw foodists, they on average look 20 years younger than their biological age if you compare them to people who are meat eaters and grain eaters and so forth. Or even people who are fully vegan, but if you're eating cooked food, my point is if you're eating anything cooked, you have no vitality in you, because cooked food has no energy, has no nutrition, has nothing in it. So for you to maintain vitality, you have to be a raw foodist.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey guys, who else has questions?
I have a question.
Sorry, I think I interrupted somebody.
No, Laura, no. You didn't interrupt anyone. Please ask your question.
I just have one question. Have enemas helped you, Ivana, with during dry fasting?
In what sense?
How enemas, for example, did help you with emotions, emotional detox symptoms, or because I
don't feel enemas have any really. First of all, I want to preface this by saying that I am not someone who makes a lot of use of enemas, all right? Because I feel that you can go overboard. Your body has to be able to work on its own to clear its waste. And if it doesn't, you have to resort to enemas. There's a problem and you have to look into solving it a different way. Really, I mostly use enemas in preparation for the dry fast. And maybe a couple of days after the dry fast. I don't use enemas for emotional balancing or anything like that. Okay, my bowels move fine. I have no problem with that. The only time I would like use an enema, like if I wake up and I have a headache and I need to get rid of the headache, and I'll do an enema and that will do it. But that's all I can say about my personal use of enemas.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Laura, you wanted to ask something?
Yes. Hi, Ivana. Glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
I'm just curious. You said that you need to do at least 3 days of a dry fast to do any real healing or cleaning.
Yes.
And so I've been doing this once a week, 24 to 36, and now today I'm up to 43 now, 43 hours, and I feel very weak, after 43 hours. So should I be pushing it, or like just keep at it like weekly and increase it by a little bit every week?
Yes, I would go slow.
Yeah.
I would go slow, but it took me 3 years of dry fasting to heal my adrenals, and this is why you feel so weak, right? But just because you feel weak, it doesn't mean that you can continue fasting, because I kept pushing. It just means, all right, you just adjust how you get through that fast. Now, if you're like so weak you're passing out, you're losing consciousness, that's a problem. But if you're just weak, it's okay. So take a break, lie down, sit down, don't move too much. Okay? It's okay. You can still do it. I did it. That's how I did it. So it's about, being really, really in tune with yourself and knowing where that line is, where you can push it versus, okay, I got to stop now, And that's not something I can advise about, because you have to intuitively know.
Okay, thank you. And in preparation for, let's say, a 3-day dry fast, what would you recommend exactly to prepare for it? Because I was wondering with this particular fast that I did, because the first 24 hours I find the hardest when, the glucose, body's using the glucose from the liver. So, but then once I get past that, it feels a lot easier for me. So I'm assuming that means the ketosis kicks in and I feel better.
Well, you will know ketosis because it has symptoms. It doesn't feel good. Right. Ketosis actually is when you feel really crappy during the fast, right? For me, it's headaches. I have headaches. I have weakness. I feel really all of a sudden unmotivated. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to move. And this is when you actually should move. because moving and getting the blood flowing and circulating actually clears those ketones out of your blood faster, and you don't stay in it as long. So the most important thing for anyone doing dry fasting, I would say, even if you're doing only 24, gotta clean out your intestines. You cannot have any food residues in your intestines. This is what's going to make all the difference.
Okay, and how do you suggest doing that?
So first and foremost, if you know you're going to be doing a dry fast, at least a day or two before, you stop eating solid food. You're only drinking liquids, juices. And, you know, what I do is I will drink a juice, like a pear juice, that's going to clean you out, make sure there's nothing there. And then you still continue to drink juice to make sure you're hydrated, right? And then you do a couple of enemas to make sure there's nothing in your intestine. And only then do you start your fast. It makes all the difference in the world.
Okay.
Not having any food in your intestinal tract, anything that's solid, gotta get it out. This is what causes people a lot of problems. This is what actually makes it take longer for you to get into ketosis, because you gotta burn the glycogen first. And if you have any residues, your body's gonna eat that, because that's food. You understand? It's gonna look for food wherever it can. So if you leave food around, that's where it's gonna go. So which means it's gonna keep eating longer, which means you get less benefit, because you have to get through the glycogen burning stage to get into ketosis. Then you have to move through that for that to finish, for the actual cleansing to begin. So if you're only doing 2 days, you wanna get there real fast. Like my last fast I did, I was in ketosis 8 hours later. That's quick, you know? That means that you can get more done in a shorter period of time. So you don't have to go as long. But to go anywhere really in terms of cleaning, you have to get through that keto flu. And then you have to give yourself additional time, because this is only when things begin. And that can take as long as 3 days. And this is why I tell people 3 days is really the minimum. And that depends on your diet, you know, how clean your intestinal tract is, and so forth.
So doing like a 3-day dry fast, let's say once a week, is that safe? You think?
There was 6 months in my time when I was doing 4 and 5 days, when I would every single week, a stretch, I would go either 4 or 5 days, nonstop. I would start on Friday and stop on Tuesday.
Stop dry
And I
fast.
did that every single week for months, and I'm still here. So, it was not a problem.
And in between that, you just drank juice.
No, I did eat fruit, and I did eat even some vegetables. Yeah.
Because
But I was raw. You gotta be raw. Another thing is that you cannot last dry if you are eating even 20% cooked food. It's going to impact your stamina. It's going to impact how long you can last without water. It makes a huge difference. You gotta be raw 100%.
And by cooked food, do you also mean dehydrated food?
I don't know. Probably not. Dehydrated food is different, but it is exposed to some heat. I don't know how to, I'm not a fan of dehydrated food, and I'm not a fan of, you know, these recipes that people get dehydrators and they make pastas. I don't do any of that. I keep things very simple. The most I do is cut stuff up and chop it up. That is it. I don't dehydrate. I don't create cashew sauces, all of that. The more you complicate things, the more you complex the chemistry, the harder it is on the body. And when I say raw, I also mean stay away from nuts and seeds. because that is also too heavy and it's going to encumber the body. It's going to make it more difficult for it to clean itself.
Okay, thank you. One last question. I was wondering if before a dry fast, if I were to have some vegetable juice along with fruit juice, you know, in separate at separate times, because there's less sugar in vegetables, would that help me get into ketosis faster?
No.
No.
Actually, fruit juice is processed much quicker than vegetable juice. Fruit juice, from my experience, when you are on a juice feast, doesn't even travel the entire length of the GI tract. And that's why when we are juicing on fruit, you know, we do deep tissue cleansing because that goes into the tissues right away. Sugar has nothing to do with it. It actually takes longer to digest vegetable juice. So it's not about sugar at all, because that sugar is burned very quickly. It doesn't get stored. What you store is whatever you can't use. That's what glycogen is. So, and that's why the lighter your diet, the better, because then you're not glycogen loading your liver.
Okay,
that's the thing, because you don't even have a lot of glycogen reserves if you're juicing, because your body burns so quickly through it, digests it very fast.
So the glycogen reserves are from all kinds of food, not just from fruit.
From anything. It's extra energy. It's extra energy the body cannot use. It's storage. Your liver is a storage device, right? But it's limited. And if you consume more energy than that, then it's gonna now, your liver is gonna use fatty acids to turn that sugar into fat. And it's gonna be now stored as fat tissue. So glycogen is short-term energy storage. If you had more food, if you consume more food than your body needed, could use at that moment, it's gonna be rerouted to your liver, stored as glycogen. But when you are consuming things like juices, the energy is so refined and you're not consuming that much energy, you understand? The body's gonna use all of it. You're not really consuming so much that you now have to store things. And this is why I say that the lighter your diet, the easier your dry fast will be, the quicker you're gonna get to the point of where your body's actually doing real work.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Hi, Ivanna. Hi, I'm glad that you're feeling better too. I have 2 or 3 questions. So my first question is, I've been doing a solid food vacation since a couple of months now. And I think for the first 2 months, I had like so-called healing crises. Since I would say since 6-7 weeks, I don't feel, I don't have any healing crises. So, and I'm drinking fruit juices and veggie juices. I think that the so to speak, the wrong thing that I'm doing or have been doing is that I'm consuming too many herbs, in the sense of, I started like a couple of weeks ago, I started to consume a lot of spirulina and chlorella, and I feel like my body, I mean, when you drink juices, you're also digesting, but I feel like spirulina and chlorella is not really helpful. So I don't like, my question is to you, what would you recommend as a next step? Is it juices only, as fruit juices only, and get rid of the celery and cucumber, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't like chlorella or spirulina. You have to look at what these things are. They are common. When do spirulina and chlorella start to grow on water? When water gets dirty and stagnant, that's what produces, this algae. So to me, it's just the whole idea of it. It comes from a toxic place, you see? So I don't care how many vitamins it has or you know, amino acids. You are eating stagnation.
Yeah.
You are eating garbage. It does not start to grow in water until the water gets stagnant, stinky, and just dirty and toxic.
Mm.
So think about that. Why would you want to put that in your body?
Yeah.
So I would 86, the chlorella and spirulina all together. Personally, I'm not a fan for that reason. Now, if you want to take your detox to the next level, you got to go all fruit juices. Now you're into this fast so long that now you can really step it up. And if you want to really step it up, not just any fruit juices, you know, I would be doing citruses, I would be doing grapes, lemons, and ginger.
Okay.
I would get rid of vegetable juices at this point completely.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. And the second question is that's a similar question that I asked you in our last call last week, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit. It was the question about glandulas and when some I stopped using all herbs except kidneys and bone and connective tissues. But I'm still wondering, when is the point when you incorporate glandulas? For example, I have scoliosis, and watching all videos from Dr. Morse, whenever scoliosis is coming up, then he's like, oh, use glandulas for a parathyroid. Yeah,
Well, a glandular in this case would be like, you know, like a jump starter cable to jumpstart your car. In this case, to jumpstart your gland. If you are taking bone and connective tissue formula and you're not getting any regeneration or bone building, then it may be appropriate to go on a parathyroid glandula for a month for one bottle. That's it. You understand?
yeah.
But another thing you have to look at, what are your vitamin D levels? And do you have enough vitamin K?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also consuming, or I've been consuming a lot vitamin D and K, and I stopped it.
Right.
You know, but it's on my shelf.
Are you seeing any improvement in bone density or?
The only thing, so not necessarily with my enamel. What I'm seeing is, yeah, I'm losing hair. Since like maybe a month. It started a month ago, but my nails are super strong and they grow really quickly. So I don't know.
All right, so this is a very good sign. And what it's showing you, it's showing you that whatever areas are now having cleaned up are healthier, like your nails, are being regenerated. So the idea is always, you cannot regenerate in an acidic environment. Until you get enough of the acids out, you can't rebuild. So you're going to see that some of your parts of your body are going to start to get really better. And other areas where you still have difficulty eliminating old stagnant acids are still going to be lagging behind.
Okay, so it's not a contradiction that my hairs are getting, that my nails are getting stronger, but I'm losing hair. It's not a contradiction.
No. Remember, I talked about, you know, if you have an obstruction, a lymph obstruction in your neck, you know, you're not draining from your head, but you're draining everything from the neck down. You see? But it's also common to go deeper into detox, because my hair shedding had stopped for a year. And then a few months ago, I started to shed like crazy again. After not the last fast, but the fast before that.
Yeah.
You understand? But now it's completely stopped. And my hair got thicker. And I see new growth. So there's going to be cycles that you will see as you go through the layers of crap and you removing it from your body. And you will see some parts of your body get stronger and better first. and some are going to take longer.
Yeah. That's what I've been noticing a lot with my skin going through phases. Like there's a week where my skin is super dry and then it looks super soft. And then, I don't change any cosmetics. So I've been seeing this a lot with my skin actually. Okay. And
Before you go into the next question, let me talk about the skin, because another thing happened through this fast is that my skin got so dry that when I would take my clothes off, it looked like it was snowing. Just dry skin was shedding like crazy. Why is this happening? When we release acids through the skin, they dry out through the skin and they break it down. You see, this is what happens. And especially uric acid does this. And if you do consistent dry brushing, it's going to help you move lymph better, and it's going to keep your skin in better condition consistently. But when you are releasing a lot of stuff from the skin, you may just go through a period where it may take a few days where all of a sudden everything is dumped. And like I said, I looked like I was covered in snow, and it was all skin. This was after the fast. And it lasted for a few days, and now it's gone. Because hydration happens from the inside. It's not about the lotions that we put on or anything like that. I don't use any lotions on my skin. And it will go through periods where it's great, like you said, and then it gets really dry, because those are the times when you're releasing more acid. And when acid, that residue sits on the skin, it's going to break the skin down. And this usually happens more in winter because cold is alkalizing. So when cold hits and where we're more surrounded by cold air, more things actually come through the skin. It actually helps mobilize lymph a little bit, cold weather. And that's why people get more colds during the winter time when it gets cold. It's not because they get it from a bacteria. When it gets cold enough, actually there's no bacterial activity, because bacteria is stop being active under certain temperature, and yet we still get the cold. So it's not the bacteria that are causing us to get a cold. It's the fact that cold air is alkalizing us and creates better movement of lymph that now can start to be moved out of the body.
Yeah, that makes sense. Would you say when you are on a long solid food vacation, you have a healing crisis and then it stops, that also your detox stops? Or is that too simple to put?
That means that particular, you've reached the end of that particular issue, or at least a part of that particular issue.
Okay. That's it. Thank you so much.
And things like you can have a healing crisis, like I said, that can be spread out over time. It's almost the only way I can liken it is when you have a pimple and you're squeezing and pus comes out, and it looks like you got out of it, but it's still inflamed, right? And then a day later, you squeeze more pus come out. So it's the same with detox. Like sometimes it takes time to get to the bottom of it. So you can release a part of the problem and you have a healing crisis that lasts, let's say, 3 days, and then it goes away. And then 2 weeks later, it, circles back again. The same symptoms. So it's actually quite common.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Thank you so much for the insight. Appreciate you. Thank you, Ivanna.
Anyone else?
Yes, I would have a question, please.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to ask you about glandulars. How efficient is taking them right after the dry fast? I mean, if the body is flooded with stem cells after the dry fast, would the glandulars help the stem cells specialize in that tissue-specific cells?
Personally, I would not take a glandular right after the dry fast, because you're taking an animal product. You understand? You want your nutrition that is going into body to be as light as possible. Also, depending on the length of your dry fast, right? So you're going to start with liquids, you're going to start with water, juices, and then you progressively move to more dense foods or substances that you take into your body. So I would not ever recommend somebody take a glandular after breaking a dry fast. Okay, you gotta get there. But anytime that you stop taking, that you don't have to fast. Anytime you stop taking a glandular for a certain period of time, you take it again later, your body becomes resensitized to it. You see? So you don't need to help your body with the glandular to make it produce more stem cells or anything like that. It already does that.
Okay, I was just curious in terms of specializing them in that specific tissue cells, you know. If, for instance, I take glandulars for adrenals, then those stem cells would transform into adrenal cells.
They would anyway. The body will direct them where they're needed. You understand? You don't need to give the body instructions. This
okay,
is
okay.
The body knows. The body is more intelligent than we will ever be. You don't need to worry about that. It will direct things where they need to go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, does anyone else have any questions?
Hi, Ivana. It's Dina. Hi, Arik. Is there time to ask?
Sure.
Yeah. I sent you about the beta cells in the pancreas and if they can be regenerated.
Everything can be regenerated. The question is how long it's going to take. Anything, you have to understand, anything that's a genetic issue is going to take longer because you have to clean all the garbage out first before you even get to that level. So it depends on how involved you are systemically, but everything can be regenerated. You know, I remember speaking with Rory, and he said something that sort of turned a switch in my head. He said that he was one and a half diabetes, not one, not two, but
yeah, it's called LADA. It's called LADA, 1.5.
Because they found that you know, there's some insulin, even though before they didn't. But the thing is, I don't think that this is an accident. I think that because of the work that he's done with fasting and juicing, he's starting to now produce tiny amounts of insulin. So it's not that the tests didn't detect it before. No, he was type 1. And now all of a sudden he's showing his 1.5. You see? So yes, you can get function back. The difficult thing about diabetes is that insulin is a hormone. And anytime that you are taking a substance that the body naturally produces, it stops making it. You see, this is the tricky part about diabetes. Is that because, you know, if you keep giving your body insulin, why is it going to start making insulin? It has no need because it has to keep things in balance.
Mm-hmm.
If it only needs this much insulin, you give it to it, why is it going to make more? So it's about, you know, it's a sort of a very delicate dance with when you, as you move through your detox, you stop slowly reducing the amount of insulin you take in. Because that's because when you create a little bit of a shortage, like you give it enough, you're sort of stimulating it to go and reach a little higher to reach that threshold. It goes, well, if I try a little, I can make up the difference, you see? But yes, ultimately, you can reverse anything. It's about commitment.
And is dry fasting okay for diabetes?
You know, I was thinking about this, and I think that dry fasting would actually be better for diabetes. Now, there was a study in 2014 done on people who observe Ramadan, and they have seen that dry fasting for a certain period of time improved their test results for type 1 diabetics. The thing about dry fasting is that it's about finding a sweet spot of doing it the right amount of time. Not going too long, but not doing it not long enough. And the reason why dry fasting is superior to water fasting, especially as it comes to diabetes, is that when you are truly dry fasting, you create a closed system of endogenous feeding. Whereas when you're drinking, you're bringing in substances that the body has to metabolize, which upsets your internal balance of sugar and glucose and all the other hormones and stuff like that. Because when you're completely dry and everything is self-contained, the body maintains its own perfect balance. Hormones, neurotransmitters, everything. Because nothing is coming in to upset it. So it actually is a more perfect system to help. The question is, how long do you do it for it to be effective enough? So from what I have seen, it's more of on a short-term basis where you are doing it more intermittently, maybe 24 to 36 hours, rather than going much longer than that.
Yeah.
But they did look at, people who are fasting during Ramadan for 24 hours. They have seen improvement in type 1 diabetics, and these were dry fasters.
Mm. And there was a third question, but I'm trying to remember what was it. Yeah, no, you answered it. Okay, Ivana, thanks a lot for the answers.
Ivanna, I have a question about enemas.
Yeah.
I've never done an enema, and up until now, I've heard so many people say that they're not necessary and, they can become habit forming. So, but I'm just thinking maybe after what you just described, before my next dry fast, maybe I should try one, or colonic. What do you think would be the best way to start?
For me, it's a matter of convenience. You understand? In some ways, colonics can be superior to enemas, but they're not necessarily so if you know how to do them properly. And if you do the massage and you move the fluid all the way into your ascending colon and you put in enough fluid, you can still get a similar result. It's just that, colonics are more expensive. You have to leave your home. You have to go to a place to do this. It's not as convenient. Whereas enemas, you can do at any time at your convenience in the privacy of your home. I personally am not somebody, like I said, who uses enemas habitually. I use them specifically to prepare for dry fasts and then shortly after to clean out, or if I have a headache. Because yes, enemas can become habit forming. If you're doing enemas, something is happening that your body is not moving bowels. There's a problem, right? If your body is working, you should be having as many bowel movements as meals you have throughout the day, right? So there should be no need. I'd rather somebody took herbs to move their bowels than do an enema, because an herb is going to travel the entire length of your GI tract. It's going to pull on the lymph. It's going to clean the wall of your intestine, which an enema is not going to do. And an enema can overstimulate and cause innervation, right? So now, after you've done an enema, now you actually make yourself constipated. And some people do coffee enemas, which is the worst, because you are innervating the system. You are overstimulating the adrenals, overstimulating anything. So now it has no energy left. So the next time you no longer have a bowel movement because you just overstimulated yourself. So my stance on enemas is you have a headache, they're great for that. Preparation for a dry fast is a must. You have to clean out your intestines. For that, you have to do enemas, and I do multiple enemas. And I use lemon juice, and now I started adding actually essential oils. And I've seen really good result with that. So there's a time and a place for that. Would I recommend them every day? No. Sometimes when people just start their detox journey and they're just getting into detox, coming off the SAD diet, I would tell them for the first couple of months, do enemas regularly, because cleaning out certain parts of your lower intestines can open up filtration for you. You have to understand, every organ is plugged in to our GI tract, right? So our kidneys are plugged into our sigmoid and our cecum, right? And sigmoid is right here. This is our lower intestine. So you at least can open up one of your kidneys by cleaning that portion out. So there's a value for them, at least in the beginning, because it helps get things moving. But then you got to get off. You got to get your body to a point that your body is doing what it needs to do properly. And if it doesn't, and you are all raw, you're in juices, you got a problem. You're muted. I can't hear you.
Yes, thank you. And you mentioned essential oils in your
Yes.
enema. Which essential oils do you use?
I have used thyme, fennel, and basil.
Okay.
And thyme especially is really good because it dissolves parasite eggs.
Oh,
Yes, so essential oils are as a parasitic treatment.
excellent. Thank you.
Yes.
This is such great information. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad.
Ivana, I want to ask a question on behalf of a friend who is not able to attend those meetings. He has some kind of prostate issues, and he's trying to heal it with series of dry fasting. He's also very interested in Philonok's work. So I just wanted to ask, in order to help him, if there is any specific points or aspects that these kind of issues would require in terms of all this detox process, like prostate issues.
Any issue, and prostate is something that is actually very easy to clean out because how close it is to the kidneys. Everything goes back to the kidneys. Until you open up filtration and start to move lymph, that is how healing happens. There's no other way. There's no remedy herb that's going to fix this. You have to remove the acids that are, causing a problem in that area. And, a lot of the times, I don't know if he takes medication, but people will take medications for this, and it can actually hold people back. So, you can't serve both masters. You can't be fasting and be on pharmaceutical medication, because Dr. Morse talked about this. It can actually drive your PSAs up. And he had a client who was on fruit and he was doing great, and then all of a sudden his numbers started to go up again, and he couldn't understand why, because he was taking medication. He got off the meds, his numbers went back down to normal. So everything that creates swelling, enlargement, like a prostate, it's acids, and the only way to do it, you have to get it out. Dry fasting, I don't know how long he fasts. Dry fasting helps to open up kidneys, but kidneys are king. They have to open up first. And until you get kidneys working and lymph moving, so it's a twofold situation. It's not enough just to open up the kidneys. Yes, you open up the kidneys, and this is why people see sediment initially, and then sediment stops, because sediments was coming from the kidneys. Now you opened up the kidneys, but you're not moving the lymph. You're not breaking it up. You're not mobilizing it. So it continues to sit there. So kidneys have nothing to actually to filter. So you have to mobilize lymph, and sometimes you have to take herbs for this. And I do see a great difference in how much sediment you get out just on a fruit diet versus on a fruit diet plus lymphatic herbs and kidney herbs.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, And also I promised in the group that we would address few questions from the previous time. Do you remember some of them? I do remember some of them, but maybe you have a list or something.
I do not remember. I was out of my mind last time. I was so ungrounded. I didn't know where I was. So if you remember questions, then.
Yeah, there was a question about your teeth during the last fast, if you have experienced any improvement or something like that.
I experience improvement in my teeth after every single extended dry fast, always, without fail. They all, first of all, they come out so white. It's like you had a bleaching treatment right away. You know, you brush your teeth and it's almost like, wow, it's amazing. They get really strong. They're really firmly set in your jaw. Always. This is another reason I love dry fasting. If you have problems with your teeth, nothing works as amazingly as a dry fast. But you got, for teeth, you got to go even longer than 3 days. And I would say 5 days and even up. But it's amazing. Yes.
Okay. And then there was a question about swollen legs. I don't remember if the guy has swollen legs during the dry fast, during the fast, or in between or before the fast, like in his regular life. But this issue of swollen legs, I remember there was a question about that.
Yes, I remember this. What was curious for me is to know whether or not the person continues to have swelling during the dry fast, because that should not be the case, but it also depends on how long you're dry fasting. I am someone who has lymphedema. I have swelling of the legs. I have bad circulation in my lower extremities. Within 3-4 days, my legs get all of the water out. There's nothing but skin and bones that's left. And it's almost shocking to see the difference, how much my legs shrink when I dry fast. So that always helps. But outside of dry fasting, it's very important that someone who has this type of an issue, they cannot consume salt, period. There's no amount of salt that is okay to consume for someone who has this type of problem. Another thing is that they have to understand that the reason the swelling occurs in the first place is the acidosis. You have a lot of acidic deposits in the tissues of your legs. And because of the slow circulation or impaired circulation, it's very difficult for the body to actually move them out. And I don't even know how well this person's kidneys are filtering, right? So, you know, outside of fasting, raw diet, there are herbs that you can take for circulation. 2 herbs are excellent for this: horse chestnut and butcher's broom. And they're going to get the fluid out and they're going to improve the circulation. But you have to be on a raw diet. You cannot do any salt. You have to get your kidneys to work. And another thing is you got to do some sort of massage. You can use, you know, dry brushing where you're moving fluid toward the kidneys, upward. So this is something that's going to help. You have to use physical activity to stimulate movement of lymph in the lower extremities.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I also sent you another question to your WhatsApp. Another question from the last week.
Let me see. Is this about the hard dry fast of 108 hours?
Yeah, something about the pain in her descending colon.
All right, so let me read the question. I had to stop the hard dry fast after 4.5 days, 108 hours. I felt serious pain in descending part of the colon, sigmoid, I assume, and I passed bloody mucus a few times. And it was just like when my ulcerative colitis started when I was 18, and I had it very severe all my life until about 7 to 8 years ago, when I finally was able to get the hang of it. So I got afraid that I will have to go through a flare-up before it gets better. Okay, so here's what we're talking about, healing crisis. This is a perfect example. This is how healing happens. What did she discharge? She discharged bloody mucus. She didn't lose golden eggs or diamonds. She discharged garbage, right? So this can only be a good thing. And when you're going through a dry fast where you're having a healing episode, this is what is actually going to happen. And it's not going to feel good. You're going to see your condition revert back to its acute stage. Look at what she's saying. It was just like when my ulcerative colitis started when I was 18. So she's talking about what I was talking about earlier today. This, when she was 18, her ulcerative colitis was in the acute stages, right? This is when she was having the symptoms. And then she says she got over it. And now that she's dry fasting again, it's coming up again. Why? Because the issue was never healed, correct? And now that she is dry fasting, she is starting to heal it. So this is a good thing. When you're having a healing crisis like this, the worst thing you could do is break your fast. Because when you do that, you automatically, instantly halt the healing process. You stop it. And you do not finish the job. This is excellent. If you are getting stuff out of your colon like this is why we dry fast. To get all of this garbage out. So this is the comment that I have. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think she's also asking about the technical thing that she cannot afford not to be like she needs to serve her family and to remain active. So she wants to know how she can combine fasting with staying active and useful.
I have no issues staying active. I'm active every single day till about maybe I went into day like 12 where it started to get really hard for me. I work out every single day. You should be active. There should not be a part of the fast where you're just laid up in bed looking at the ceiling, unless you're just really going through a healing crisis where you can't move, because sometimes you have those instances where the body is doing a deep cleansing and you have no energy and it's hard for you to move. So that's when you take a break. But other than that, you should be active. You should be working out. That's what keeps the blood and lymph moving. It assists in detoxification. It keeps your spirit high so that you have the right mental state to actually achieve healing, because mental state is extremely important. So you have to have some sort of motivation to keep you going, to keep your spirits up, to keep you in a positive disposition. Fasting is not I go and I stay in bed and I don't do anything. This is a lesson I had to learn, because originally that's how I started out, because I was told that, oh, when you're fasting, you got to rest. You can't do anything. You got to let the body do the work. And this is just not the case. It's not true. Because I can compare and I see the difference. I feel better when I move. What makes it difficult for people to stay in the fast is that they get antsy and anxious and they have nothing to do. And it just feels like the time drags on forever. And there I go, like, I just can't take it. But if you have something to do, your mind is occupied, it actually makes things go smoother and faster, and you're enjoying yourself. So this is a good thing. This is not a problem. Unless, of course, you have really poor adrenals and it's hard for you. Then I can see, because I've also had that experience where you just can't do much because you don't have the neurotransmitters to do it. But 8, 9, 10 days, I will go out for a walk. I will do yoga. I will actually use weights and I will work out. I will make myself work out. I'll do it several times a day just to keep things moving. And I recommend that everybody else does that.
Okay, Ivana, very interesting. And also, there was a woman requesting for you to elaborate on your good experience, on your positive experiences during the last fast. And connected to that, there is another message that I sent you just now to your WhatsApp about your spiritual experiences during this fast. So yeah.
Well, first, I want to emphasize that all of my experiences through fasting, even the ones that don't feel good, I see as good and positive, because everything that happens during the fast is about healing. So even if it, doesn't feel so nice, I'm still excited about it. Oh, I'm in pain. Oh, I have this coming out. Oh my God, this is great. I'm so excited. How amazing is this? Because I know that I am going somewhere. I am getting somewhere on my journey to healing. So all of that is exciting to me. I love all of it. You understand? Even the bad stuff. And the more bad stuff happens, the more excited I get, because I know the more stuff I'm cleaning out of my system. So I don't view anything that happens on a dry fast as bad. All of it is a very constructive part of the process. And the more stuff that happens that feels bad, the more excited I am, because that means the more work I'm getting done. So all of it is great. All right. As far as spiritual experiences, my dreams, my out-of-body experiences, the times that I'm still sleeping are off the charts. Like, I don't understand people who do autonomy and they don't want to sleep. My dream life is so exciting. It's better than any Hollywood movie. You understand? But this is why I would never want to give up sleep, because my sleep is way, way, way better than my waking life. So how do you give that up? I enjoy it tremendously. And especially, when your body is clean and your energy is high and you can still sleep, even if it's like 3-4 hours, my dreams are so vivid, so exciting. And my recollection of these experiences is so much better. Because remember, we all have out-of-body experience. There's not one person on this planet that doesn't have OBEs. It's no matter how much do you remember. So the less encumbered your mind, the higher vibration, the more you remember. You come back and it's like you close your eyes and you start dreaming right away. You're still awake and you start seeing things right away. The story starts unfolding in front of you and you're still awake and you go, oh, this is so cool. It's like having your own cable network built in between your ears. So that was happening a lot. But also a lot of stuff was coming up. Like I said, this was an intense fast for me. A lot of fears, a lot of issues around identity, self-worth, all of that came up. There were times that I was sitting there and sobbing, but then it's almost like a rainstorm. You sit there, it's like a rainstorm passes through and then everything is clear, not a cloud inside. You clear that stuff out and then it's beautiful. So this is all part of the process and it can happen to you. And if it does, it's great. It's something to be celebrated.
Amazing. And could you please elaborate on your sleep patterns throughout this last fast?
So my sleep patterns I see have been shifting the more I've been fasting, where it takes me longer to get to the place where the sleep goes away completely. You understand? So sleep is improving. But also I'm somebody, like, if I'm getting 4 hours of sleep a day, I'm super happy, because that's enough. But what also happens during a fast, this is a very fascinating phenomenon that I don't even know if I can explain this. It's like there are two types of times that are happening. There's the clock time that you see, but then you have your internal time where everything speeds up. And it's like, if I fall asleep, for example, toward the day, like 9, 10, you're still getting, day 9 and 10, I was still getting like an hour, which is great. An hour at a time, and then you get another hour, you're good. But the thing is, it's like you fall asleep for an hour and you feel like you're asleep for a few hours. The duration and the quality of it is different. It feels longer, and you wake up, you feel like you have slept much longer, until you look at the clock and you go, wait, it's only been 15 minutes?
Mhm.
So there's also the difference of the impact that the sleep that you are getting, however little, has on the body. Somehow it's more restorative and it feels like it's more than what it is. So it's an interesting sort of altered state of consciousness you're in, where things seem to happen very quickly, and it seems like a lot has happened, and then you look out and you go, wait, it's only like this 3 minutes passed and nothing really happened. So, and I attribute this to the frequency of the body being raised.
Mhm.
You understand?
Yes.
So I don't even know how to explain this. It's very difficult unless you experience it. It's
Mhm.
it's a strange thing. Not a bad thing, it's just different. You just
Yeah.
feel you're between worlds. You're not quite in the physical reality, but you're not quite completely out of your body. You're sort of in between.
Yeah, you explained it pretty clear. Yeah, thank you very much. And when you mentioned 4 hours of sleep, are you talking about fasting periods or about your daily routine? Like,
No, fasting periods. Fasting.
okay.
Yes. So no, normally I like to get like everybody else, 8 hours. I like my sleep. I'm not gonna be one of those people that on top of not eating and drinking, gonna be staying up forever. That doesn't work for me. I have no interest in that. I like my out of body experiences. But when you're fasting, so the first 3 days I sleep normal. I get my, actually sometimes I even sleep more, because when you go into ketosis, you're so, I get so down and so out of energy that it makes me sleepy, and I can actually sleep more. I can sleep like 12, 14 hours through that period of time, which I don't mind, right? But then the first 3 days I'll sleep normally. Now it's going to be more like days 4 or 5, I drop down to 5, 6 hours, which is still good, because when you've been in a situation when you're literally sleeping 15 hours a day, 6 hours is a luxury, and I enjoy it. Like, I have no complaints about having 6 hours, but this is during fasting. And the thing is, you don't feel a lack of energy when you're still getting your 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep. There's no lack of energy. You don't feel you're missing anything. You're energized. You feel good. The problems for me start when you're really like going into 15 minutes. And it's not even the sleep itself. It's just that there's such a feeling of unease within the body, just because the body's working on things. It doesn't feel so great. So it's not so much about sleep. It's just that we use sleep a lot of the times to turn off and not deal and not be in a situation, right? And when that situation is uncomfortable and you can't even turn your mind off, it's difficult. And at this time, what happens is that you can't even, or at least I can't watch TV or read. Your mind is in a different place. You don't want to, you have no interest. You want to sort of be present, but being present is uncomfortable because there's a lot of processes that are happening in your body on a deep level. So the suffering comes really from wanting to turn off and not be there for at least some period of time, which sleep could sort of provide, and you're not able to do that. That's really it. It's just that there's discomfort, there's the heat, and you're just feeling out of sorts and you want to get out of your body. It's more of that type of feeling.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, does anyone else have any more questions for Ivanna? Or we are going to wrap it up.
I have one last question, Arik. I'm just wondering, Ivanna, when we're doing these short dry fasts, like 24, 36 hours, 42, when we break the fast with a juice, let's say, or juice for the following day, Does the detoxing continue or does it stop, full stop, once we break it?
A certain type of detoxing stops right away. Now, if you're going with water the way I did, because when you go for so long, you have to stay on water for a few days. You're still really detoxing deeply, but in a different way. Like I said, it's a more painful, more drawn out detox, water fasting, you know? But if you're doing juice, you really stop detox at that point. Now, juice is gonna start to, juice can clean you in a different way, you see, but it's just a different mode of what the body does and how it does it. But dry fasting detox is very specific. There's nothing like it. It's a closed system. It's very intense and intensive, and it's very clean. Nothing comes in and very little goes out. So, but when you start to introduce other things, everything slows down. So you're still gonna be getting something done. You understand? If you're on juicing, your body's still gonna clean itself. But is it gonna be like dry fasting? No, that stops instantly.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Ivana, and before we end up, I will ask you traditional question for those webinars. Please tell us a little bit about the services that you provide for people who watch it for the first time, who might see you for the first time. How can you help people?
Well, I help people as a detox coach. I help them get their health on track. I do iridology readings. I can read eyes. I can tell you about your genetic weaknesses, about the level of your lymphatic stagnation. I can give you a protocol specifically modified to your specific case, depending on what health issues you're dealing with, to help you get to a better place. I am also a mindset coach. You know, a lot of people, once they get on a physical healing journey, they sort of stumble because inevitably detox leads to emotional stripping and undoing. And if you don't know how to deal with your feelings, your emotions, then you may actually sabotage yourself and stop the healing journey because it can become overwhelming. So I teach people how to use their emotions to help them heal rather than avoiding them. I give people the basics of, you know, how the world works, how this blueprint of this reality works, so that if you have any kind of issue at all, you have the toolkit where you go, you can plug it in and you can work the things out for yourself. You understand? Once you understand how you create the reality, because reality, physical reality is a mental construct. It does not exist outside of us. All right, it is not a place in time and space that we can travel to. It is like a dream reality. When you go to sleep and you have a dream, you're dreaming a dream that is very vivid, very real, very clear. When you wake up, you cannot find that place on a map. When you wake up, you cannot travel back to that place because it only exists in your consciousness. But when you're asleep, this reality that we perceive as a waking reality is actually just another dream. So it's like we're switching back and forth between two dream realities. And once you understand how this works, how you create it, how everything that you perceive outside of you is nothing more but a result of your own energy. You are an energetic epicenter that's emitting an electromagnetic field. And when that electromagnetic field of energy interacts with the fabric of physical reality, it changes that you know, primordial soup that physical reality is made from into specific shapes, places, people, situations. So everything that you perceive outside of yourself, everything, there's nothing in physical reality that you did not create. So once you understand how you do that and how you can create the things that you want, and this is what I teach people how to do, once you know that, then you can tackle any situation in your life. So what I do, and I have, you know, I work with people one-on-one. You can book hourly sessions, or you can buy a package where you're going to get like a program where you're going to get all of these basics. So if you've had 5 sessions with me, you're going to come out with a toolbox that 2 months down the line, something happens, you know exactly what to do, how to handle that situation. Because the structure and the underlying principles of the universe are very simple. One is you exist, always have, always will. That will never change. 2 is that one is the all and all is the one, which means there is no separation. Everything you perceive, everyone believes is actually one consciousness. 3, what you put out is what you get back. This is important. What this means is that the energy that you project, that you emit as that, you know, as that transmitter is what determines what you get out, because physical reality is just a mirror, it's a reflection, it's a projector screen. You project your energy onto it, and what it does, it creates a picture, a movie that you perceive as your life. So this is very important. What you put out is what you get back, and you cannot get back what you didn't put out there because nothing else exists out there. Number 4, everything is here now. There is no place in the future, tomorrow. There's only one moment. And it appears as a multitude of moments is because we're observing it from different points of view. And by doing that, it changes the angle of that moment, and we perceive it as if having different shapes or it being a different time and space, but it's not. Everything is here now. And number 5, change is constant. Everything changes except the first 4 laws. So these are the only things that define existence. Everything outside of that is a belief system. So the world that we perceive, and when you talk to people, this is very clear to see, especially now, the times that we're living, how different people see the world. So the reality that I live is literally not the same reality as you live in, Arik. Physically speaking, you understand? Literally, there's nobody that lives in my world except for me. And even you are just a version that I created myself out of my own particles. So when, you know, people come to me in class say, well, you know how the world is. And I said, no, the world is the way you are. It's a matter of becoming aware of how you are really. What are the underlying beliefs that you hold about yourself, the world at large, what is possible, what the limits are, that are determining the actual state of the world that you live in. And you see that some people think, you know, I see this, just look, go down the Facebook feed and see how differently people perceive the world. And it's not because they perceive your world differently, but because their world is literally different from yours. They live in a different world. So you don't have to be impacted by their actions. You're not at the mercy of a political system. You are literally the boss. You created everything that you perceive. So once you understand it, once you understand the mechanism behind it, how it actually happens, then you can direct your life in the way that you prefer, that you're getting the feedback and the circumstances that are aligned with your preference and your joy and your happiness, so that you don't have to be a victim. And I teach people how to do that. I also teach people how to get in touch with their energy body, because I am an energy healer. I teach you how to actually clean your energetic system, how to use your own energy to charge a room, how to use crystals and other permission slips, other tools and objects to enhance your life. So, you know, when you're coming to me, you're getting the full kit. You're getting the physical, you're getting the emotional, mental, energetic. If you have just 5 sessions with me, I guarantee you're going to come out a different person. And you're going to feel much more confident in your ability to direct your life.
Wow, that is so inspiring. Yeah, maybe we should do a certain specific seminar, specific webinar only about dealing with emotional issues. I think,
Sure.
yeah, might be very, very relevant subject, because I find many people around me are affected by fears and by different negative emotions from different sides. So it's also important for people to provide those tools for people, how not to get affected by all those things.
Most people are afraid of emotions. We lack emotional intelligence. Since we're little, we are unfortunately taught to suppress certain emotions. Certain feelings are good, certain feelings are not good. You're not allowed to feel this. And if you're a boy, you certainly are not allowed to feel this. And if you're a girl, you must only feel these feelings. And if you're feeling anything else, there's something wrong with you. But emotions are indicators, like temperature. Okay, we have physical indicators that tell us there's danger, you need to make an adjustment. It's like, oh, I'm touching a hot stove. Oh, I need to move my hand, right? You have an emotion, it's giving you information that something is happening, it's telling you, right? Something is happening inside you, and then you decide, do I need to make an adjustment? Do I like this emotion? And if I don't, I need to ask myself, what would I have to believe is going on for me to have this feeling? Feelings are always attached to definitions. You cannot have a feeling about something or someone until you have defined it in any specific way.
Right.
You understand? If
Right.
I ask you, there's a channel that I follow, Bashar, and a lot of this is based on his teaching. And he asked a famous question, one of his audience members, that I'm going to ask you. He said, how do you feel about aglets? Can you tell me, what feelings do you have about aglets?
What is aglets?
Exactly. Unless you know what it is, you cannot have a feeling about it. So if I tell you what feelings you have about aglets, you go, I have no feelings. How can I have feeling about something that I don't know what it is? And that's the whole point. The reason we have a feeling is because we have defined something in a specific way. So when something happens to us and we have a negative definition about it, we start to have negative feelings about it. Do you see?
Absolutely.
So we have the power to create definitions that serve us, because a lot of our definitions are detrimental to our own good.
Yeah.
And we just accept them as a matter of fact, but they're not. Remember, there are only 5 laws that don't change. Everything else is a variable. That is, those 5 laws are your equation of existence. And then you plug things in, and depending on what you put in, whatever variables you put into that equation, the answer is going to change. So it's up to you to define and create variables in your life that are going to give you the answers that you want.
Exactly. Yeah, okay, Ivanna. Hopefully we'll make a whole webinar about that. It's such a fascinating subject.
Yes.
Yeah, we concentrate on the physical aspects. What about the emotional, psychological? I think that's very fascinating.
Exactly.
I mean, because we're much more than just the physical body. There are other aspects.
Yeah, so now we've got an idea for the next webinar. Okay, anyway, guys, so that's time to wrap it up. So we'll put contact details of Ivanna, just a moment, below the video. There will be contact details for Ivanna, and also the contact details for contacting me in order to join this weekly fasting group. So thank you very much, guys. Good night.
See you later.
And thank you very much, Ivanna. It was so enlightening, all your talk and all the questions and all the answers. So we really appreciate it very, very deeply. Thank you so much.
And you really look different from last week.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Bye-bye. Have a great fasting.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.